Nice to have you here on the Banfield Show. We've got some new video of that moment in Kentucky when a judge was allegedly by his own sheriff in his own chambers. This is an angle and a resolution that we have not seen until now. It's everything that was happening beforehand as well. So you can see the sheriff in the tan shirt there. He's not in uniform. And he's sitting back with his arms all folded, and the judge looks comfy and smoking. Well, that's kind of old school. Right before this, there were other people in the room as well. So we're now getting a full picture of exactly what led up to this bizarro execution of a Kentucky judge in his chambers. But does the body language of the judge tell us something? Because right now, no one's talking. We know that the judge handed the judge's phone over to the sheriff right before he's executed. But there is some body language that's very curious, and we've got an expert who advises law enforcement on body language who's going to advise us on what we see now in this new video. That's coming up in just a moment. Also, Bryan Kohberger's had some pretty lonely years, right? Last 2.5 years, stuck in an ISO cell by himself. His parents are clear across the country on the other coast, not visiting a whole lot, if any. Well, those parents, that family, just got some very good news today. And it's probably real good news for Bryan Kohberger as well, because I highly doubt there will be a whole lot of supporters in court in a couple of months when that man goes on trial for the Idaho quadruple murder. I'll tell you what that news is, but it won't be me telling you. Bryan Enton was just in court. He was just in Idaho. He jumped a plane all across the country, and he's just landed. So he's going to bring me a live update from the airport, because I grab Bryan Enton wherever I can to get reports from him. So that's coming in just a moment. And then also, I know you have heard of Laci Peterson, but have you heard of Evelyn Hernandez? We all know Laci's pictures. I mean, she blanketed the airwaves. But do you know that other lady on the right? Evelyn Hernandez was also 9 months pregnant, also vanished, also showed up in the San Francisco Bay dismembered right afterwards, also had a suspicious father of that baby. So why don't we know Evelyn Hernandez? These happened just months apart. Does it mean anything to Laci's case? And what about the resolution? Laci had resolution, right? Was Scott Peterson being jailed? What about Evelyn? You're going to hear all about that in just a moment. Let me start here, though. Ordinarily, when somebody tells me not to believe my lion eyes, whether it's a politician or one of my own kids, I do not take it well. My eyes are just about the only thing I do believe. And the just-released video from an eastern Kentucky courthouse makes it crystal clear that a county sheriff gunned down a sitting judge in cold blood in the judge's own chambers. At least that's what it looks like. So how can the ex-sheriff's lawyer say with a straight face that the video proves his client isn't guilty? Talk about an uphill climb. The new footage is longer than the clip that we got back in October, and it is much higher resolution, too. So it begins with Judge Kevin Mullins entirely at ease, sitting in his cinder block office and chatting with friends and coworkers at his desk, even smoking a cigarette. They shoot the breeze for about 12 minutes on this video until the sheriff, Sean Mickey Steins, who is not in uniform, enters the room with another man. And soon after, the judge clears the room of everybody, except for Sheriff Steins. And the sheriff takes a seat opposite the judge on the other side of the judge's desk. This doesn't look unusual. Everybody looks like things are normal in that courthouse that day. I'm trying to wrap my head around it. For the next 7 minutes, these two colleagues, who are also very old friends, talk about something. But we don't know what that something is because the video is silent. It does not have sound. But then we see Sheriff Steins messing around on his cell phone. He's either taking a call or making a call, or he's trying to do that. After that, the judge hands the sheriff the judge's own phone. And Sheriff Steins appears to make a call on the judge's phone, getting the number off of a contact that's on his own phone. And whether Steins saw something on the judge's phone or heard something on that phone call, something set off Sheriff Steins. And that has been the subject of rumors right from the very start. But the judge doesn't appear to think that he's in danger. Not at all. Maybe until Steins pulls up his shirt to reveal his gun and then actually pulls the gun and locks the door. I mean, this part's weird, right? I cannot, for the life of me, imagine what this conversation was. Door's locked. There it is. Still, the judge is comfortable just sitting there. Today, Sheriff Steins' attorney sent us a statement, and I will read it for you. It says, quote, "The recently released expanded footage further supports our position that Mr. Steins sincerely believes that there was a threat to his wife and daughter. As the Commonwealth's witness testified at the preliminary hearing, our client, that's Steins, attempted to contact his daughter from the judge's phone. Multiple witnesses have given statements that Sheriff Mickey Steins had grown increasingly paranoid in the weeks leading up to the events in the video. The phone exchange and the corresponding conversations denote a crucial point when the culmination of Sheriff Steins' fears, his impaired mental health, and the pressure connected to his testimony in the federal civil lawsuit reached a boiling point." Did you get all that? That's a hell of an uphill climb. That lawsuit that the lawyer just mentioned about his client, that was filed in January of 2024, 8 months before what you're seeing on your screen right there, the execution-style killing of a judge. The lawsuit claims that sheriff on the screen, Sheriff Steins, failed to properly supervise one of his deputies, a deputy who eventually admitted to extorting sex from female inmates, and a deputy who was sentenced to 7 years in prison for it. The plaintiff in the lawsuit was a victim in the criminal case and claims the sex assaults happened, are you ready? Right there in Judge Mullen's chambers. Ugh. As for the video that you just watched, what does it tell us? What doesn't it tell us? I want to bring in Scott Rouse. He's a behavior analyst, a body language expert, and a friend of our show. And Scott has worked with the best of the best, top law enforcement, government, military, to help advise them about body language in certain and specific cases. Scott, it's good to have you here. You've been able to watch this video, this new, longer, I call it the prelude to the execution. What stands out for you?
There's so much that stands out for me. What most people are under the impression is happening, where the guy comes in, the sheriff comes in, is relaxed, and the judge is relaxed. That's not what's happening at all, not even a little bit. Wow. When that guy walks in, watch what he does. His body language is really tight. He's moving constantly. He's going back and forth. Then he goes back and he makes a threat check. You'll see in just a minute, into the other room when he turns around and looks. And that threat check is to make sure it's okay that he can do something, that there's nobody there
let's go full screen with the video. I don't want to miss a bit. You and I are on the screen, but let's go full screen with the video in the middle so I can really understand what you're saying and see the small details. Keep going.
Okay, that was a threat check where he just looked out the door there. And I believe it might have been the sheriff that was telling everybody to leave, maybe not the judge. Everybody got it fairly quickly. But then I thought, well, maybe it is the judge, because they're not doing what are called threat checks, making sure everything's okay. They're not afraid when they leave, and they're in a hurry, but they're not afraid when they leave. They never turned around and looked as they left. Now, see, just in a second, you'll see the sheriff walk to the door, and he checks out there to make sure everything's cool. Just in a second, he'll turn. But now let's watch the judge as well while we're waiting on that. He looks like he's calm.
He's smoking.
He's not. When he sees it.
Right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And a lot of times people smoke when they're stressed. He may have been, there it is, checking, seeing who's out there, making sure everything's okay. Then he shuts the door. Now, this judge knows something up. He looks like he's very relaxed and all that, but look how stiff his body is. He's braced against that chair. Nothing moves on him except his head. And if you were to go fast forward, you'd see his head just bobbling back and forth. It's almost like a ventriloquist dummy. It's going back and forth. Now, as they start talking, okay, I'll go some more for this. Everyone else is relaxed in there. Apparently, they were having a meeting or something about whatever they're going to be meeting about. But now, watch the judge. Now, at this point, he's trying to look relaxed. That's what that looks like. And we know that because how stiff his arms are. They're straight. When he's putting that food in his mouth, his head goes back a little bit too far. His arms are stiff. His movements aren't smooth. There's a threat check. He comes in, shuts the door, and maybe it was the sheriff that said that. I can't tell.
Yeah, when you were saying that his head was bobbing, I didn't see that at all. Is it super, like, subtle?
No, it's going back and forth. He's looking, it just goes back and forth. Nothing on him moves. There you go. Now he's going to stay in that position pretty much the whole time. His hand's going to go back and forth, but he's using his hand as a barrier. He's afraid of this guy. Something's up. There's some kind of relationship between these guys. I'm not saying they had a relationship themselves, but something's going on before all this, because this big guy, the sheriff, came in and he's got something on his mind. If I was a betting man, I would say he came in to do what he did. I don't think what was on the phone triggered him to do that. I think he was making the sort of preamble to say, here's why I'm doing this. I'm proving this to you. This is wrong. This shouldn't be happening, whatever it is. And that's when he gets up and does that. So I think I'm not an attorney. I can't say anything about whether it's premeditated or not, but it looks like this is what he planned to do when he came in there. He had this on his mind. So
so I'll tell you what. I want to line up this next discussion with video. So I want to make sure our producer has the moment when Sheriff Steins actually stands up from the chair and then begins to sort of walk over towards the judge, because I felt, and again, I'm a real neophyte in this science, I felt as though the judge's body language changed. His hands went up, but not in a defensive way. It was almost like, what are you talking about? But here, watch this. Tell me what happens, and if you see a profound change right there, those hands going up, a profound change in the judge's behavior.
Well, of course, his limbic system is on fire right now because the sheriff has pulled the gun out. Now watch what happens. He's sort of angled himself away from him, and when the hands go up here, those are defensive moves that when he puts his hand up. See that one down there? He's ready to throw that up, but he's saying, "Calm down, keep calm. We don't need to do this." And that's what people do when they're trying to get someone to calm down. You see those hands come up and they start patting. In other words, patting the air down. He knows something's up here because the sheriff probably said, "I'll do whatever it is I'm going to do to you." I don't know if I can say going to kill you or whatever, but he told him what was going to happen. There he tells him to sit back down. Now you'll watch him back up a little bit here too, because he's way too close. When you're a marksman or you're a shooter, you don't get that close when you're shooting someone. If you're a professional, watch how far out his arm has to come before he shoots. So he backs up a little bit.
I want to ask our control room if we have another shot that continues from that moment, because the one thing I will say is, like, when anybody ever pulls a gun out, most people put their hands up and freak out right away, but it doesn't look like Judge Mullins is as freaked out as the average guy would be if someone in front of you pulled a gun.
Yeah, he's trying to talk him out of it. He's under the impression he can probably talk his way out of this, because I would be under the impression that he's done that before. He's not talked himself out of getting shot, but talked his way out of a lot of problems, and that's the way he does it. So there's the defensive move with his hand up. That's why you see a lot of times people with stab wounds in their hands and gunshots in their hands as well, because they hold their hand up to stop whatever it is. This isn't explosive behavior by the sheriff either. He didn't jump up and go over there. He's talking to him about this, and he's explaining to him why he's going to do this, and whatever it was that he did in this relationship, be it family things, be it whatever it is, that's what they're discussing right there. And he's telling him what's up. That's why he locks the door. Nobody's going anywhere. So I think he was doomed when he came in, because if we watch him when he came in, you'll see the sheriff only looks at him twice, and the judge keeps his eye on him, because he's afraid of him. That's when he starts getting still. And at the very beginning as well, you see him, the nervous rocking back and forth. You'll see him, a lot of mouth movement. In other words, he's mouth grooming, licking his lips and things like that, and making these short, fast moves or quick moves, which let us know he's on edge. He's on edge when he came in there.
Well, let's roll that. Let's roll that tape again, because you just mentioned when the sheriff first walks in, you're saying that you can see something very specific.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it looks normal to me.
Yeah, I promise you it's not. I promise you it's not. That judge right now, his limbic system is starting to light up. He's worried. He's worried. I know it's tough to tell from this far, but I got to look at it. I blew it up and looked at it closely, and he's nervous. He's about as nervous as he gets. Because,
what about the fact that, Scott, there's all these other people, 1, 2, 3, 4 people. Do they have body language that suggests, uh-oh, something's wrong? Or does this look like oh, you know what? This is the judge's chamber, and we got to scram when he says so. Like, what is their body language saying? Let's drop the banner so we can see the bottom guy too on the frame, if we can, please.
Okay, they're all relaxed. Nobody's worried. Nobody's stressed. It may be stressed because they're in front of the boss. You see the small things, but see, no one's in a big hurry. They're leaving, fairly quickly, but they're not worried as they leave. There's the woman with the phone that was sitting on the windowsill. You can tell a lot from watching her. She's not worried, not even a little bit, about any of this. So these people have no earthly idea what's going on, which happens quite often because people don't pay attention to the little things that are happening in a situation. They're not aware of what's going on around them. But if you watch this guy, the sheriff, he's still just briefly there in the doorway, but he's rocking back and forth. See how his foot's pointed toward the judge? Our brain, when our feet tell us a lot, because wherever they're pointed, that's what we're thinking about. That's what we're thinking about. And right here, see the one with the phone?
Why is he closing the door? Why is he closing the door as he's asking people to leave? Like, that's kind of weird. Like, he's closing the door, but at the same time, it's 1 second before everybody's cleared out of there. Isn't that odd?
He may have said something. He may have said something like, if you don't leave now, you're not leaving. But then again, they're not afraid when they leave. So that's the law, but people act oddly when they're nervous. When his stress level has got to be through the roof, that sheriff, because he's got a plan. I believe he knows what he's going to do. I really do. You don't
think, Scott? You don't think that he blew his cork when he looked at the phone? You think it's all being formulated now?
Yeah, no. I think he planned on that. I think he planned on it. I really do. I hate to say premeditated, but he thought about this beforehand. He thought about this. Now watch that judge. See, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. I'm just watching. Like, there he is putting something in his mouth. Yeah.
He's trying, but
trying
watch
to look
how
relaxed,
fast he's going. Yeah, trying to look relaxed and watch him smoke. Now even in that 7-minute break, he's having another cigarette right after that. I don't know if the guy's a chain smoker or not. But that usually indicates someone's nervous when they start smoking. He was smoking obviously when he came in. But watch the only thing that moves on him is his head. What?
Yeah, and listen, this is just fascinating to me. I will end the segment, though, by saying that sheriff is innocent until proven guilty, even though we're looking at a video of what looks like a bald-faced execution. Again, steep hill to climb. Scott Rouse, I always love having you on. Thank you so much for this. I really appreciate it.
Well, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
And we'll have you back again, that is for sure. Still to come tonight, when a jury duty is the hottest ticket in town. Hundreds were called to potentially pass judgment on Sean Diddy Combs, but in the end, few will be chosen. So who's making the cut and who's getting cut? From the jury pool, that is. And what kind of secret actions are the lawyers allowed to take to get the exact juror that they want? You might be surprised. That's next. Who among us has not been dumped and never told why? Left to wonder what we said or what we did or why we just didn't measure up. It stings, right? For a long time. Like, I'm speaking from experience, and I'm looking at you, Mark. Don't worry, I'm doing fine. Been a long time. But there is a virtual festival of dumping going on right now in Lower Manhattan. because Sean Diddy Combs, along with his lawyers and federal prosecutors, have been breaking up with potential jurors all week long. They're trying to pick a jury of New Yorkers to decide if he's guilty of racketeering, sex trafficking, and transportation to engage in prostitution. And jury selection is a lot like a date. You agree to show up or you answer the summons. They ask you all sorts of questions about you, and then they either ask you on another date or they tell you that they're not that into you. And dozens of prospective jurors were told to hit the road this week for whatever reason. But 45 of them, 45 New Yorkers were asked on another date this Friday, where the dumping will sadly continue until Diddy's lawyers and the feds have picked 12 final jurors and 6 alternates from the dating pool. How the jurors will make it through this final round depends on how the lawyers use their peremptory strikes. That is basically a chance for a lawyer to get rid of a potential juror without telling anybody why they did it. Sound familiar? There are limits, of course, to peremptory strikes. You cannot exclude jurors on the basis of race or sex, and you can't do it over and over and over again, like Mark did. Again, I'm good. But in Diddy's case, prosecutors get 6 peremptory strikes, and the defense, they get 10. So who will the lawyers be choosing from on Friday? Turns out teachers and nurses and lawyers and window cleaners and finance workers and some people who are just in between jobs. Their hobbies are interesting. They range from cooking and running to gaming and pickleball and from photography to Star Trek. They listen to K-pop and jazz and heavy metal and country and rock and roll and Christian music. And yes, they listen to hip hop. So who stays and who goes? And can a trial really be won or lost in jury selection? I'm joined now by Eric Rudich. He is a jury consultant and, not coincidentally, a social psychologist. It's good to have you here, Eric. Thanks so much for being here. So,
thank you.
What are they looking for? What are they looking for in these peremptory challenges and peremptory strikes?
So, they're certainly evaluating the juror questionnaires and jurors' responses to those questions and their responses during voir dire, as well as they're doing in-depth background checks on each prospective jurors. And they're looking for certainly some key questions in the questionnaire. For example, if you're the defense, you're looking at whether or not someone indicated that they've been a victim of sexual assault. If you're the prosecutor, you're looking at people's attitudes towards law enforcement. Have they have had a negative experience with law enforcement? So both sides have their ideal profile of the, what jurors they want, and more importantly, for the deselection or breaking up process, who they don't want.
So, okay, that's the easy stuff. I'm going to go to the social psychologist in you, and I'm going to ask, what are they looking for that is not in their answers?
So it's not what you say or write in your questionnaires, but it's often how you say it. So you just had a body language expert on. So someone could say that they've been a victim of sexual assault, and on paper, that may look the same for, depending on, the context. But certainly, the threshold to make it this far and be on one of the 45 jurors is to indicate that despite that experience, you could be fair and impartial. So it's how you say it. Do you say, some jurors, like you noted, really want to be on this jury. So are they saying, well, I think I could be fair and impartial? Or do they say it with some more certainty? So you're certainly not only looking at what they said, but, how they said it as well.
So there's the kind of juror I'm always looking for called a stealth juror. That's somebody who really wants on the panel because they have an agenda. Either they hate the guy or they love the guy. How do you spot a stealth juror who wants to be there for all the wrong reasons?
So you certainly want to look at whether their responses on the questionnaire match their in-court behavior and also their social media presence. So if there's someone who is very tight-lipped, giving very short answers, you kind of have to ask why. Certainly if they seem to be very opinionated elsewhere. So you're really looking at their in-court behavior during their court questioning or voir dire to see if there are indicators that they want to be on the questionnaire or want to be on the panel. often those jurors will engage in behavior that indicates that, they want to be on the jury because they're tight-lipped about the answers that they give. Often they'll say, give short answers because if they know if they say too much, then they'll be questioned even more. So there are certain ways that they're not foolproof, but you're certainly looking for key little indicators to determine, does someone really want to be on this jury? And if so, why?
I forgot to mention in my preamble that jury selection is like dating, except for the ones who really don't want to be in that courtroom. They're like going on a date that your mom sent you on. Eric Rudich, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you.
Such a cool science. And I do believe that cases are won or lost in jury selection. And by the way, jury selection may not be the Fed's biggest concern tonight. They told the judge before court wrapped up for the day that they cannot seem to locate a key witness for the prosecution, alleged victim number 3. The judge told the prosecutors, keep trying. But the defense said they want to know by Friday how many accusers they're going to have to face up next week, right? So stay tuned. And we reached out to Sean Combs' attorneys today and requested a statement from them, but we have not heard back, and I will say it again. They're at trial, and it is a busy time. So I don't besmirch anyone for not getting back to journalists while you're in the courtroom. Coming up, big news in the Idaho murder case. In fact, some very welcome news for Bryan Kohberger's family. Our Brian Enton is just back from Idaho. He literally just landed, so he's going to jump on the air with me live. I think he's still at the airport, actually. Don't go away. We're back up after this. It has been a long and lonely 2.5 years for Bryan Kohberger. Locked away in a maximum security jail cell, segregated from the other prisoners, thousands of miles away from his parents in Pennsylvania. They can't exactly pop in for moral support when the mood strikes. But their moods may just be a little brighter tonight after a ruling from Kohberger's trial judge in Boise. Our Brian Enton was there and jumped on a plane to come back. He's fresh off the plane in New York. I'm so glad I caught you. You're at the airport. What did you learn in that hearing?
Yeah, sorry if I look a little greasy, Ashley. It's been a long day of flying. But basically, these rulings came down today. We've been waiting to find out if Bryan Kohberger's parents and sisters were going to be allowed inside the courtroom during the 3-month trial. And the judge decided today that, yes, they are going to allow them to be there. The prosecution was concerned because they are expected to be witnesses at some point during the trial. But the judge decided it was Bryan Kohberger's constitutional right to have his family there, to have his sisters there if they want to come, and that they could be there throughout the entire trial, Ashley.
That's going to be super awkward if you think about it, right? Because you've got a courtroom is always bifurcated. Usually behind the prosecutors are all the victims' supporters, family members, et cetera. And then behind the defense, obviously, are the friends of the defendant. But I don't know anybody who has spoken out in his favor. I don't know anybody other than very odd people online who just think what they think. But that would be it. That'd be just the family facing down families of 4 kids on the other side.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking about the trial. I mean, I don't know if the Kohberger family is going to come right in through the front of the courthouse, and the families of the victims maybe will be escorted in through like a side or back entrance. But yeah, it's going to be logistically, I think, sort of an interesting 3 months, and also just to see what they're there to testify about. We don't know totally for sure. I have some theories. I mean, you remember the prosecution has said that Kohberger bought the knife off of Amazon. Was it a family Amazon account? Do they need to bring up the parents to say, hey, are you the ones who ordered the knife? I think that could be one possibility.
Yeah, and I should explain that what's key here in this ruling is that when you're a witness in a trial, you can't sit in the courtroom and listen to the whole trial and then, have your testimony affected by all the other people you've heard testify. So that's why this is such a big deal, that the family members are likely to be witnesses, but they are also family. So it's the same goes for the victims and those family members. If they're going to be witnesses, they also want to be able to be in that courtroom, you know, to be there for their loved one who's not there. So it's just always a very tense and tender kind of decision that has to be made. Can you just briefly tell me about the closed door hearing on Monday? We were all playing parlor games trying to figure out what it was about, and I think we know now.
Yeah, there was a lot of speculation. People thought that it was a plea deal, which we knew it wasn't happening because it was just a remote hearing. It turns out it was the prosecution asking to have their own mental health evaluation done on Bryan Kohberger. Remember, the defense has had experts talk about his mental health and the conditions he has, but now the judge has agreed that the prosecution can do that. So there's going to be another mental health evaluation. They said the lawyers can't be there for it, but they can watch by video. When that's going to happen, we don't know at this point.
You're based on the East Coast. I'm just loving the vibe of seeing the airport behind you, but this is going to be a lot of cross-country travel for you because you're going to be taking this flight, if not others, from the East Coast all the way to the West Coast. Bryan, thank you for this and get a really good sleep tonight. It's been a long journey for you today.
Yeah, thanks, Ash.
And I recommend the Uber or the Lyft because the taxi line is always really long at that airport. Bryan, I just love that he's willing to do this. Like in the middle of this long travel day, just stop down, do a live shot for the Banfield show. Still to come, a young woman, 9 months pregnant, disappears around Christmas Eve 2002, and all eyes turn towards the father of the baby. And then suddenly, her body surfaces in the San Francisco Bay. If you think I'm talking about Laci Peterson, think again. I'm talking about the woman on the right-hand side of your screen, Evelyn Hernandez. Why don't we know more about her? And what happened to the father of Evelyn's baby? Story's next. If I say the name Laci Peterson, you can probably fill in the rest all by yourself. A mysterious disappearance, a gruesome discovery of her mutilated body and that of her unborn baby. The evidence that convicted her husband, Scott Peterson, who, by the way, now has a fighting chance at a new trial. Laci's case was covered and followed and analyzed and debated all around the world. The case of Evelyn Hernandez, not so much. Actually, not at all, really. But it seems Laci was not the only young woman pregnant whose body turned up in the San Francisco Bay in the early 2000s. Evelyn was 24, a single mom from El Salvador, just days away from giving birth to her second child. Laci, too, was 9 months pregnant. Evelyn went missing in May 2002 and was found dead in the Bay 2 months later. Laci went missing in December 2002 and was found in the Bay 4 months later. For all of their eerie similarities, the cases are very different in one respect. Scott Peterson was caught and jailed for life. But the person who killed Evelyn, whom some have called the other Laci Peterson, he's never been caught, even though, like Scott, suspicion fell on the father of her baby. Evelyn's case is being featured in a 3-part Hulu docuseries called Murder Has Two Faces, and the face of my next guest features prominently in that documentary. Bobby Chacon is a retired FBI agent who served as a diver in the San Francisco Bay looking for Laci Peterson. Bobby, all these years that I've known you and interviewed you, I did not know that you were diving and looking for Laci's body. And here we are on this story. Why don't we know Evelyn Hernandez's name?
Well, that's the good question. That's the big question raised by this series. You know, in the several episodes that we've done, each of them has a case that generated, you know, if national, if not global, attention, and then a very similar case in the same geographic area that has many, many more similarities than differences, and received almost no attention. And that's the question of it. Is it you know what decides and who decides what gets that coverage? And then the audience, I guess, decides what's going to kind of go viral, what's going to catch, you know, the audience's attention and drive the coverage of the story.
But also there's the $100,000 reward. I mean, that should be a driver. It's just sort of astounding. But there are some reasons that other people will say. Some people will say it's missing white woman. That always gets the coverage over a woman who's not white and is missing. But there is also the whole Scott Peterson circus, the way he behaved, the Amber Fry mistress, the lying, just the excessive, compulsive lying in the case. And the fact that he was like taken off to the Mexican border too. I mean, that does factor into this.
Well, I think so. I do think so, but I do think there's something to be said for, looking at the victims. I think if we looked overall at all of these cases, you would find some demographic similarities between the victims that aren't covered as opposed to the victims that are covered. Because even in Evelyn's case, you did have, it was almost a reverse situation. So it wasn't a married person with a mistress, but in Evelyn's case, the father of her child was also married to another woman. So it was almost a reverse situation. He had this child coming out of wedlock, basically. Now, he's never been named a suspect or even a person of interest, but he, and I'm not going to name him, but he quickly, got a lawyer. And after just a few interviews with the police, basically stopped cooperating in the case. So, it is a question of, we know, like in my situation, I understand that, press brings pressure. Pressure brings resources. Resources brings results. And in a lot of these cases, this pressure that mounts from the coverage on the mayor, the police chief, whoever, even the FBI boss is involved in certain cities. And then because that pressure, they give you the resources, and then the resources are able to bring some results. And so that's kind of the crux of what the creator of the show, Lisa Cortez, and certainly our host, Robin Roberts, really get to the bottom of that kind of issue. What drives the publicity in one case and not in the other? And, in particular, in this case, the Laci Peterson case is solved, basically, and the Evelyn Hernandez case never was.
And let's just add that cute little 5-year-old that she was holding on to, that child disappeared as well and was never found. So that boy is still a mystery, body never found. And the similarities between Laci and Evelyn, both of their torsos came up in the San Francisco Bay. They were missing their heads, their arms. Laci was missing her legs, but Evelyn wasn't. The child was never found, not in San Francisco Bay or otherwise. But does it give any rise? Obviously, you always want to think about the fathers of a baby because there could be domestic issues at foot. But does it bear discussing that potentially the same person did it to both of these victims?
Well, I think that, Laci disappeared, even though their bodies wound up in the same general area, although on opposite sides. So Evelyn was found on the San Francisco side of the bay. Laci was found basically on the Oakland side of the bay. And Laci went missing in Modesto, which was significantly different geographic areas. And so I think that defense was raised possibly by Scott's defense team in his trial. But I think there are certainly enough differences between their situations that the same person doing both murders is probably a very, very long shot of a chance.
Interesting. Bobby Chacon, thank you so much for this. I really appreciate it. And keep us posted if anything from all this new media turns up any clues to this cold case. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Ashleigh.
And folks, you can see Bobby in Hulu's new docuseries. It's called Murder Has Two Faces. It's hosted by Robin Roberts, as Bobby just said, and it is streaming now. Coming up next, move over, Sweeney Todd. Luigi Mangione is in the house, or at least an actor who's going to play him is actually on a stage. It's a brand new musical, and even though it is way, way off Broadway, the reviews of the idea alone are pouring in. We've got a preview for you after the break. Who wouldn't want to see a story of love, murder, and hash browns? Honestly, you had me at hash browns. That, my friends, is the tagline for an upcoming live stage production called, wait for it, Luigi the Musical. A, quote, bold, campy, and unafraid look at Luigi Mangione. Yes, the alleged killer of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. The show is set to premiere in June at the Taylor Street Theater in San Francisco, but do not bother looking for tickets. It is already sold out. Of course, there has been backlash before it even opens, so I suppose you call it frontlash. But the producers are trying to tamp things down with this statement. Let me read it for you. This show is not a celebration of violence of any kind, nor is it an attempt to pass judgment on an ongoing legal matter. Our hearts go out to the family of Bryan Thompson, and we acknowledge the pain and complexity surrounding the case. End quote. We'll see. A local actor is going to play the starring role, but the internet thinks that it could do better. Actor Dave Franco is top of the list for most of the super fans, but I am a little more partial to Joe Jonas. Maybe it's the eyebrows. I don't know. But I'd love to hear what you have to say. And Luigi may need a little boost after celebrating his birthday yesterday behind bars. No big fancy dessert on his birthday. Instead, he was served, are you ready? A breakfast cake. Not birthday cake. And believe me, there is a big difference. But Luigi can also buy himself a treat at the commissary because his legal defense fund just topped $1 million. Yeah, donations. All right, make sure you do me a big old favor. Head to Drop Dead Serious. That's my podcast because I've got a really great podcast that's dropping at midnight tonight Pacific time. It is a big, long, and really fulsome conversation with TMZ's Harvey Levin about the Diddy trial because Harvey knows stuff. He gets stuff. And this conversation is really, really insightful. Also, if you didn't know, Harvey's a lawyer. So the conversation's great. It's on Drop Dead Serious. Hope you check it out. Thanks, everybody. Cuomo's next.